Leo, don't you dare. Go lay down.
Did I look like a heckin' weirdo?
No, you looked like when Ben Stiller is fat
Dodgeball?
in Dodgeball.
Talk about a great movie.
Dude, I love Dodgeball.
Dodgeball is a classic, man.
Oh, absolutely a classic.
So, had you heard of The King before I mentioned?
Well, I didn't know anything about it. I saw it like when it released. I think it's almost a year old, like this month. I think.
Yeah, as of I think it came out November 1st last year.
Okay,
so yeah,
cool.
it's just over a year old now.
So I remember when it came out at first. I think I even started watching it. Maybe just got like 15 minutes in for whatever reason, got sidetracked and never finished it.
Right.
But I truthfully don't know anything about the movie. Don't know anything about the director. Don't know anything about most of the actors.
Right.
It was all completely new to me.
I mean, you know about Timothy Chamomile though, right?
Timothy Camelot.
Timothy Camelot. That's actually perfect
fitting.
for this.
It's
yeah,
for the
it
time.
fits so well for this story.
Exactly.
For this movie.
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can't hear myself all right.
Oh, you might need some volume here.
Try that. Oh, much better.
Better?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I hadn't heard about this movie either until one of my buddies here was like, "Hey, we're gonna watch a movie tonight on like the Netflix." It was kind of in, I think it was like the start of the pandemic, so it was like March or April when we were just, everyone was locked down. We weren't going anywhere, hanging out, or doing anything.
Yeah.
So we watched it on like Netflix Watch Party or something like that, some app you can download on your desktop and watch movies in real time together. He was like, "We're gonna watch The King," and I was like, "I haven't heard of that." And he says, "It's a Netflix period drama. I would kind of put it in the fantasy category just because it's it's a medieval swords and stuff. It's just grounded more in reality because there's no dragons or wizards or anything like that."
Right. Isn't it? So I think I was just reading a bit about it. I'm pretty sure it was obviously the story of King Henry, but it was based off of the Shakespeare plays.
Yes.
And that's what kind of inspired it, and a lot of the story came from that.
Right. It's funny, a lot of the criticism for this movie came because of how historically inaccurate it was.
It wasn't trying to be.
Which didn't make any sense to me because it's a movie based on a set of plays which are based on reality. So, of course, if you're third in line of reality, you're going to be very far away from reality in terms of what your story is trying to say.
Yeah.
And I don't think at any point in time were they trying to make a realistic story. One, because, I mean, for the first part, this movie takes place in the 1400s. So how accurate is historical text from that era anyway?
Right.
It's hard to verify those stories. And two, who cares? Like when you think about it, if you really get down to it, who the hell cares? Why do we care if it's trying to be? Who cares?
Well, and I mean, it is a period piece, and if you like that style, if you like that period of time and seeing that in film,
yeah,
it doesn't necessarily have to be exactly historically accurate. And it's like you said, it's a movie based off of a play, based off of real life or word of mouth or written stories or whatever.
Right.
So it's not going to be exact. And
no.
I don't think it claims to be or really tries to be.
No, I don't think so either. And even still, there is some like historical truth. I mean, the main battle in the film is based on a real battle. Everything that happens in the movie is based on the actual events. They're just the characters are interpreted differently and they're portrayed differently than they are originally portrayed in historical text. But that never took anything away from the experience for me. And I got to say, as far as like period fantasy kind of films go, this is probably one of my favorites.
Yeah, well, and I would agree with that, and I was pleasantly surprised because I don't typically like that. And this is repetitive, but I don't usually like that period when it's portrayed in movies. I think it sometimes tends to be a little bit slow, a little bit too much just dialogue. For some reason, I feel like it's the standard for movies set in that era to be like fucking 6 hours long.
And
I mean,
just full of
this one at like 2.5 hours didn't feel like it was dragging. I felt it was paced pretty well.
It was paced really well.
The times where I lost track of it was when, and I think it was more of a drama than an action movie. There was some good action, but the times when I got a little bit lost or a little bit distracted were a lot of those just kind of expository moments, which are a little bit necessary when you're setting a scene like that maybe not everybody's going to be familiar with.
Right. I think the action in this movie is some of the best. Like some of the way the action was shot, a lot of it was made to look like very long takes, and the scale of each battle was very well realized. And this movie was made for $23 million.
That's what I was just about to look up, and because I was thinking that. Well, first was it a Netflix original or no?
I believe it was, yes. Yeah, I think. Well, it was released straight to Netflix.
Okay.
I don't know if it was produced by Netflix or not.
Well, regardless, given the budget that they had, I was blown away by the scale that they were able to create, and that main battle scene is so cool. First of all, it's long too, which typically in a movie like this we get just kind of short takes of battle scenes, and they last a minute or two, and then it's back to the drama or back to the politics or whatever. And one thing that struck me right off the bat was the costume design. Oh yeah, it was so well done. And when you're dealing with themes like knights and like battle horses and that kind of stuff, you can't really. There's really no cutting corners because you have to make it look realistic. You have to make it functional too, and sometimes it's hard to do both of those things. But I thought they nailed it, and especially on the scale that they were working with, and the number of people they had, and the number of extras, and all of those things. It was beautiful.
Oh yeah, and I think the fact that they were able to kind of create the scale that they did with the budget that they had, I would never have thought that this movie was made with $23 million.
No.
And the fact that they were able to pull off what they did, especially with the action pieces and with the cast too. I mean, it's not
Timothy Chalamet.
Timothy Chandelier. He's I guess technically he's probably the biggest name. Joel Edgerton is in it too. He's a pretty big name.
Robert
Pattinson's in it, but in a very minor
Timothy Collender
capacity. Timothy Cauliflower. That's it. I think we got it. Missing. Okay. So it's technically an ensemble cast, but it's not like the most insane ensemble you've ever seen before.
Right.
But the fact that they got the actors they did to play the roles that they did, I think it was a very well cast movie as well. I thought each person in their own role really chewed up their scenery with it seemed like with ease. Like they had no problem getting into the characters they were portraying. And I think from what I can remember, because I didn't realize that this movie was based on Shakespearean plays either. And not to go away from the point I wanted to originally make, but this is probably the best like based on a Shakespeare story movie I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I'm not I love Shakespeare plays, but there haven't been many movies or shows that have been adapted from Shakespeare that I've particularly enjoyed.
Well, I think part of that and part of what makes it so successful is that it didn't necessarily try with the like Shakespearean dialogue. It didn't try with kind of the, I guess, dialogue again that is set up within plays. It wasn't trying to be a recreation,
right?
And that's what made it so successful, because so many times when Shakespearean plays are being made into movies, they try to be recreations, or they try a script that is pretty close to word for word, and they try to use the lines that everybody's familiar with, and a lot of times it just doesn't work.
They try to make it like actually Shakespearean.
Yes.
Right. This movie felt like it was Shakespearean in that it took Shakespeare's idea, which was a recreation of Henry V, and went, okay, we're going to make our own recreation of his recreation.
Right. And it benefited from the story. It benefited from the different themes that are seen throughout the movie. It benefited from just having kind of having that connection with the audience by playing on different issues that we all may be familiar with, as far as the idea of friendship and family when power is involved, or when money is involved, or wealth. Just having those familial relationships, and then it gave a good look into kind of what you could expect the politics of being king at that time would be, and being respected as a young leader, and all of those kinds of things. Those are some of the ideas that it was able to kind of take and run with from its source material, but it wasn't trying to do it in the same way. It was taking the ideas and turning it into its own, and it worked very well.
One thing I think this movie really has going well for it too. Careful, Leo.
You better not hit your phone
again. We have a bear in the studio today.
Here, lay down.
Also, I would like to shout out to the fact that this is now the fourth different setting we've shot in.
Lay down. Good boy.
Oh, good boy.
You're right. Fourth setting.
He's truly a giant.
A fourth bear. Setting in like 3 weeks.
Yeah, 3 weeks. We're super mobile. What can I say? What was it? Oh, one of the things this movie really has going for it that I really appreciated was it made me want to research after I had watched it.
Yeah.
I watched it and I had a good time watching it. I enjoyed the story and the characters, but when it was over, I was like, I want to know more, because I knew, Henry V is a well-known historical figure. I didn't know much about it, because even like world history in high school and stuff, we didn't learn much about, Henry V specifically.
Right.
But from what I researched, Henry V is widely considered to be like the best like war focused leader in like ever in British history, at least in British history. Like he was a war mastermind, like in terms of like how he planned battle and the way he was able to rally his troops, because he often fought on the front lines with them. Yeah. And that's one thing I loved about this movie, is it portrayed Henry V as being in the center of it all, which, based on most historical text, is very accurate. Well, and he was always right there.
It's such an interesting character in the movie too, and I don't know how this would play into actual history, but he's kind of presented at first to be a bit of a pacifist. He doesn't, maybe not a pacifist, but he's trying to avoid getting his people into more battles.
Right.
He's trying to save, I guess, prevent loss of life in these battles, where he does the one fight where instead of allowing the entire army to go into battle, he has like a 1 versus 1 fight to decide who wins that battle, and whereas his brother wants to have these grand scale battles to try to build his legacy and all of those things. So he's kind of presented as this guy that he wants to avoid fighting, but he's not scared to fight if he needs to.
Right.
And that's part of what makes him so successful as a leader. And it adds so much depth to the character as well.
Right. The fact that he can go into a battle, I guess, kind of knowing that the best outcome is in his hands. Like he can steer the outcome of a battle in his hands alone. I think it's a great note to his character. Like, because in real life he had such an acumen for battle and for war. It was just like he steered the British armed forces to be like some of the most strongest set of armed forces that they ever were, because this takes place during the 100 Years' War between France and England. I think I don't know like in what period of those 100 years, because also it wasn't actually it didn't actually last 100 years.
Correct.
But it turned things in favor of the British for a long time, because he was so good at what he did that it swayed all the power in favor of the the British colonies at the time. And also something cool I read about Henry V was he was actually one of the leaders in that period of war that came really, really close to creating true peace with the French. I mean, he married the French king's daughter, which is true. They did get married.
Yeah.
What's inaccurate is it didn't happen right after that major battle. It was like 5 years before they actually met and got married in real life.
Okay.
That was one major historical inaccuracy that I found, which again,
makes no difference. And
it literally makes no difference in the movie.
That's something too. Timelines in that sense are sped up all the time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Both in writing and in film, or however you're portraying historical events.
Yeah.
Timelines like that are even sometimes, pretty exact, conversations will be written to make it seem like it happened, like all in one sitting, and
for brevity.
It doesn't happen that way, but we can't, like, these events are never going to happen back to back to back to back to back, but in order to make it something entertaining, you kind of have to do that. So it's kind of that's a weak complaint, in my opinion.
Plus, like, with a movie like this, with movies like this in general, I don't need to know it's just kind of something that we already inherently know. We know that time is passing, probably a little, like, things are happening, things that are taking place in the movie, there's probably a lot of gaps in between those things, because it's a period piece, it's a historical piece, and things didn't happen as fast as they do in the present day. And also, I don't need for them to, like, scroll text across the screen that says 5 years later.
Yeah,
like,
right.
I don't gain anything from that.
It doesn't change the story at all.
No, it doesn't. If anything, it could hurt the pacing of the story overall, which I think this movie really nails, is pacing. And honestly, at times it almost felt like it wasn't a movie so much as it was like a collection of like 30-minute episodes.
Yeah.
Like 25, 30-minute episodes that kind of actually have they have a really good kind of narrative arc from the first act to the second act to the third act to the fourth act to the fifth act. Things really kind of flowed together very seamlessly.
Kind of to that point, though, and I agree with you. I think the pacing was very well done. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I didn't really get bored at all. But the way you kind of mentioned, it's split up into what you could call short episodes.
Yeah.
I also noticed that there were, as good as the pacing was, there were brief times where it was like 15 to 20 minutes where I started to get like a little bit bored, or started to be like, okay, this is dragging a little bit. Mm-hmm. But it was never, like, it never felt choppy. It never felt like, I was waiting for the movie to be done. Maybe a couple scenes where I was like, okay, I've kind of had enough of this.
Right. I'm done with this area of the movie.
Right. Yeah. But I was never like, oh, I wish the movie was over. Or like, really 2.5 hours?
Right.
It was more like, okay, this scene could have been 3 minutes shorter, like that kind of thing. So it's not even really a complaint. It almost works to their favor that that the quote unquote boring parts are placed so well within the story and within the structure of the film,
right,
that it never causes an issue.
And they're also usually scenes involving Timothy Carrot, or like, him and Joel Edgerton, or him and the other advisor in the movie, who William Gaston, I don't know how to say his name.
Gaston?
Yes, William Gaston.
No one walks like him or talks like him. So
No,
I've heard.
That's very true.
So I've been told.
His character, he's like, he's a chief advisor or something like that to Henry, and he was an advisor to Henry's father too. Do we want to get into spoilers? Are we okay to get we can talk.
This is enough of a warning, right?
Yeah. Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen The King. Pause.
Or hasn't seen history.
Doesn't know.
Or hasn't seen Shakespeare.
Who like us had no idea about any of this story because we're historically inept.
Or knows nothing about. Okay.
About British history.
Just go.
Or the Henriade. I think that's what they call the Shakespeare plays. Timothy pause.
Crawfish.
Come back. Timothy Crawfish. Timothy,
why did you tell them to hit pause and then come back?
So they can not hear the spoilers and then come back once they've watched the movie. Hit pause, watch the movie, and then come back to whatever this timestamp is.
You didn't specify that.
Sorry.
You just said hit pause.
I was going to, and then I got super distracted.
If they pause when you say to pause.
I got super distracted.
Okay.
And I completely forgot that I wanted them to go see the movie while they paused it. This video.
My foot is like soaking wet because he was playing with his toy and just slobbering all over my foot.
Oh my gosh.
In the ground.
So, in the third act, Timothy Chalamet finds out that the fact that we're almost 30 minutes in and we still are trying to figure out his last name, is a true testament to our juvenile brains. He finds out that this dude, one of his chief advisors, is actually the one who stirred the controversy between him and the French.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time there was already the peace between the British and French was not good.
Well, and part of that was his father had kind of made it his life's work to try to overtake France.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to be the leader of France and Great Britain.
And Henry V actually had a very similar idea. Like he wanted Henry V wanted dominance over the French. It's never. I've never read deep into historical texts like as to why he wanted to do that, but I thought that the kind of driving force behind it felt like a good enough reason to go into war with the French at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were basically they were poking the bear, right? And when you poke the bear, not many good things happen. But when Henry V comes to learn that one of his chief advisors was actually the person who was behind all of the pot stirring, so to speak. There's this great conversation at the end between the two where Henry makes him stand on this stool while he's forcing the truth out of him. A lot of the quieter moments where they kind of might seem like they verge on being overlong or maybe not quite necessary. There's always this movie had really well written dialogue, I think, to where even in those moments you're still going, okay, but I'm still kind of, there's enough there to make me want to keep going and see what they say next or what they do next, even in the slower moments. And honestly, I feel like those moments seem slow because they're still. And a lot of this movie is very mobile. There's a lot of motion in this movie. So when you do actually just kind of stop in one place for more than a couple of minutes in this movie, it does seem to drag because the camera's just not moving as much.
Yeah.
that's a big thing.
Well, and that,
I think that kind of drives that feeling.
That scene that you're talking about too, I think, is a great example of kind of the slower moments, but how effective they are. And I think a lot of it is due to the acting, because a lot of the slower moments, a lot of the slower dialogue, is intensified by the actors themselves, and they're able to build tension, and they're able to kind of build these rivalries between characters,
right?
That just grows throughout the film, where you get to a scene like that, that seems fairly slow, and it's towards the end, so you're not really sure how it's gonna wrap up.
Mm-hmm.
But it really pulls you in, and you're kind of invested in that whole conversation and how that's going to end, and how that might tie into the bigger picture.
Right.
And I loved that scene, and as much as I have been talking about the being bored by the sort of back and forth dialogue, which that's also just kind of a personal preference, because I find in a lot of movies those are the scenes that kind of lose me.
Yeah.
But I think that scene's great, and Timothy Crocodile brings a lot. I can't do it anymore, dude.
Dude, I got a couple more, so I'm gonna say his name at least one more time.
Keep him coming.
I will.
No, say it as many times as you need. We'll just end the episode with 6 minutes straight of us.
Yeah. Rattling off names. Exactly. Or trying to figure out his last name.
Yep.
You said what? Timothy Crocodile? I think we're close.
We've got to begin.
We got to be getting there, right?
I'm running out of C words.
Oh, well.
I mean, I could start saying actual name. Timothy Cambridge. Timothy.
You're running out of C words? Well, don't be a B word about it, okay?
Tea and crumpets.
So Tea and Crumpets gets to the battlefield, and
they might have had tea and crumpets.
Oh, I bet you they did.
And I bet
100%. I bet you when he met with the French king, they had tea and crumpets, or whatever the French word for crumpet is. Crumpet.
Timothy Croissant.
So in
speaking of French, I thought that I thought Robert Pattinson's French accent was absolute garbage.
It was kind of shit.
It was dog shit.
It was actual dog shit. Like, it was not good. But here's the thing.
I was like, that's terrible.
He still put on a good performance.
It was so bad.
But his accent was actually terrible.
Good. His performance was good. Well, his performance was well written.
Yes.
But I could not
get over the horrid accent.
Never
try and do a French accent again. I agree.
Leave those to the professionals.
One thing I want to say about the performances too, there are a lot of moments that
I don't even know where I was going. I said crocodile and you didn't finish my sentence.
You just went on a trail.
Okay.
So
go for it.
There are a lot of moments where these characters are required to, have pretty big scenes where they're yelling or getting into, very intense, heated conversations. And, with that, when you're asking an actor or an actress to really really go into it, you can run into the problem of overacting.
Because sometimes it's hard to fake emotions.
Right. But I thought every time, every actor, I mean, Robert Pattinson, Joel Edgerton, Timothy Chimney, every single one of them, anytime they had these big moments, their performances really kind of came through for me. I really felt like they all were able to portray the emotions they wanted to throughout the entirety of the film. And, there are a lot of very kind of brooding moments. And I think one of the things that helps that really well is the music in this movie. I loved the music in this movie because, I mean, it's a pretty standard orchestra in terms of, the type of the score itself, but the way it's actually composed is kind of a little darker, a little grittier. It
also it felt very modern for the piece,
right?
At least to me, it was, it felt like almost, Hans Zimmer-esque at times.
Right.
I don't know who actually wrote the score for this.
I will tell you.
But it didn't feel out of place, but it didn't feel old or
right
or tired in any way.
Nicholas Britell. He's an American composer. He scored The Big Short. He's also scored Succession. He actually won an Emmy for Succession. He's also worked on If Beale Street Could Talk. So he's relatively new into the scene. But no, I agree. It felt modern, but it was very well paced. For the movie. Your dog is aggressively loud right now. I can tell you're distracted. Don't worry about it. Who cares? Who cares?
Hold on.
All right, we'll pause.
No, don't pause.
Oh, okay.
Leo. Drink some water.
Okay, he's looking at the microphone very curiously. He's very confused as to why it's next to his water bowl. I think if Dom can he's going for, no, now he's afraid. He's licking his mouth as if he wants some water, but he's just not going for it. I don't know if he's going to go for it, guys. What's going to happen? Now what the hell is now he's starting to he sees his collar. He sees his collar and he wants to bite his collar. He just wants to take it and rip it up and just rip it apart. Come here, Leo. Yes. Say hi. Say hi. Say hello. Oh. Say hello. If only dogs could talk, man. Leo could just be a special guest.
They can talk.
To themselves. Not to us. They don't speak English.
He talks to me sometimes.
Dom. I have no idea where I want to...
Were we talking about something? Timothy Chocolate Chip.
So... We were talking about the music.
We were.
And I was bringing up the point of how it's paced out well. It has a good tempo to it for the way the movie looks and kind of the way the movie is paced. The music matches up very well. And it doesn't take away from anything. If anything, it adds to each scene in its own way. And I don't know, it just felt dark. Like, it added kind of a dark shade to the movie for me, hearing the type of music. I've listened to it since watching the movie.
So I know when you're saying dark, you don't mean actual lighting, but can we take a minute to talk about well, first, we're 35 minutes in and we have not even touched on the cinematography.
Dude.
Because this film is absolutely beautiful. And one of the things that I noticed too is it seems to be at least almost entirely natural light, which adds such a cool touch, and it makes it feel so much more realistic, because there's actually there's scenes where it's cloudy, so the scene is darker. Even the scenes that are indoors are lit by candles or sunlight coming in through the stained glass. Like, it feels so real because there's nothing artificial about it.
Yeah.
Which adds so much to a period piece like this when that's what you would expect.
It gives the movie a very kind of monochromatic look. Like, everything is kind of grayscale almost. But I didn't even think about that. But yeah,
the bright is like vividly bright because it's out in the sunlight. And
because it's
golden hour.
Right. I think I like that first battle, the very first battle scene where he's with his brother, trying to convince him not to do all this stuff. That scene is like markedly bright compared to the rest of the movie up until that point, because everything else, like you said, is it's cloudy out, or it's nighttime, or they're inside and they're under candlelight. So like their faces are lit up, but things around them are super dark.
Well, and that's kind of it's something that can go overlooked, but it's like that's quite a feat for a cinematographer to so successfully use natural lighting.
Mm-hmm. I think Leo agrees with you. You know, he's basically the size of a real human being.
Yeah.
Like if he stood up on his hind legs.
But guess what? He doesn't pay rent.
No, he doesn't.
Lazy.
You pay for him to live here.
He better start pulling his weight around here.
You literally pay for him to live here.
I know.
We pay for our dog to live at our apartment, and let me tell you, I don't like that.
You don't like the dog. Or you don't like paying for him.
Both. I don't like that dog one bit, and I love dogs.
Hey, hopefully he's not listening.
Listen, okay, I like him, but I should love him like he's my family, and we just haven't gotten there yet. We're trying to work on it. Okay.
How's it going?
We're going to therapy.
Really?
It's a process. Listen,
like
therapy is about...
Well, be patient, dude.
Therapy is about, when you do it with, someone you're close to, it's about reconstructing what once was or what could be.
Do you know his love language?
I think it's words of affirmation. So I'll come home and I'll be like...
What does that mean?
And he'll come up and he'll lick my hand. Well, what I just said there was, you think I love you, but you're a piece of shit. You want to wrap this up? We're getting so off track.
I do, but I don't, because this movie was so beautiful.
Dude, it was amazing
to look at.
Also,
some of the shots.
David Michôd, I think. I don't know how to say his last name. The way he helms this movie is, I think, there aren't many great fantasy period medieval movies. Like, at least to me, I couldn't name you a list of great movies in that genre.
No.
And I think a lot of it is because the way they're shot and the cinematography and things like that are just not memorable.
Well, and most often it seems like this period in particular is mostly portrayed in TV. Like
that's very true.
There's like 50 TV shows about this period of time.
Right.
And part of that could be because of it's a little bit easier with something like this to pace a TV show than make a movie that's actually enjoyable to watch.
Right, because you just have so much to cover that maybe a movie can't do. I think this movie proves you can, though. You can for sure tell a full story like this in a single film. And now I think a movie like this almost warrants a sequel, because I think there's a lot more story you could tell.
I was thinking the exact same thing. And and did we decide if it was a Netflix original or if it was just released to Netflix?
Okay, so it was actually a Warner Brothers film.
Okay.
Which makes a ton of sense, because Warner Brothers is really, it has a Warner Brothers look to it, if you know what I mean.
No, it does.
It's got kind of a Nolan-esque vibe,
the music too.
And with the music and just, the type of film, Warner Brothers kind of has a good stake on period pieces right now. Like they did King Arthur Legend of the Sword in 2017.
Yep.
2 years before this movie. So it was originally a Warner Brothers film, and I guess they just decided not to distribute it, and Netflix bought the rights to it.
Okay.
Soon thereafter.
So the reason why I asked that is because when I was getting kind of towards the end of the movie, I was thinking that because it was a Netflix film, they could presumably make another. And they could probably be pretty successful with it. I think so. I think it opens the door. Not necessarily that there's a cliffhanger or anything like that, but there's just so many. You could follow new characters. You could follow a new story with the same, with King Henry again. I just think that there's so many other directions that you could go.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I think, from what I know and from people I know who have watched this, it's been a pretty memorable film for people who have watched it. They actually remember watching it, which is hard to say for movies from this time, like that portray this time period is feeling like it's memorable. A lot of that's because of the direction, the dedicated cinematography, the music, like everything works in this movie's favor. Whereas with other movies that portray this era, you might have like one or two of those things going your way. You might have a great score, but not a great story, not as dedicated actors, and just kind of a by the book director. Director who's just kind of going through the motions with the film.
With a period like this too, or with period pieces similar to this, it's easy to kind of name the cliches for this genre, and this didn't really. This movie was not what I expected in all of the best ways.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I thought I loved how grounded it was.
Yeah.
I loved how grounded the characters were.
Well, and it blends the drama and the action so well too.
Right.
Some of the action too is just like straight up brutal.
It is.
And it's
super brutal. Yeah.
It's heavy, and when there is violence, it's important. It has actual consequences to the story.
You can feel the weight of it.
Or
almost.
Yes, exactly. It carries a lot of weight, and or it goes a long way in setting up characters and our just general character development with King Henry. So I think it's so well balanced, and that's part of what makes it that ties back into the pacing, that ties back into the storytelling, all of these things that we've kind of touched on.
Yeah.
It really comes down to balance.
Right. I love how and I thought this movie had great, in terms of what you're saying, it had great balance. But it also, the key, one of the big keys is that it matches its well-written dialogue with well-edited action, right?
Yeah.
Because you can have a movie with amazingly edited action and poor dialogue, or you can have a movie with amazing dialogue that has poorly cut together action. And this movie was able to combine both of those positive qualities together throughout its runtime.
Right, and the audio and the visuals play so well with each
right.
other.
And you also never get that feeling of like, can we just get to the next action sequence? Can we just get to the next battle? Everything has its kind of own quality to it. Like, you never feel like you want to get to the next big spectacle, right? You're kind of okay with where you are throughout the movie, and I think that's another big positive this movie has going for it.
With a movie like this, it's such a big positive that I was not like wanting to rush it along.
Right.
Because it's so easy for us to get impatient.
It kind of like with what you were talking about being bored. You're like, okay, I'm kind of ready for this to be over, but also like, we don't have to leave. Like we can stay here a little bit longer if we wanted to.
And with the movies that we are used to today, because as few good period pieces of this time that we have had, we also just, there haven't been as many in number, right? So
right.
So this one stands out for that reason, but also with a period piece like this, and with the movies that we are used to seeing year after year, just generally speaking, our attention spans and the patience that we have for a film, I feel like has just kept getting shorter, right?
Yeah.
And we're losing so much patience. We want the next scene to happen. We want the excitement back. But I never felt like throughout this movie that I was losing patience. I never felt like I was that I wanted it to be over or I wanted to get to the next scene. It didn't drag, and that's such, for this genre specifically, like that's such a big accomplishment.
Oh yeah, I agree. All right, you ready to wrap?
I'm ready.
I'll wrap it up. I like this movie a lot. I would love to see a sequel. Spoiler, it would probably be the only sequel because Henry V dies like 8 years after he becomes king.
Don't tell me that.
Yeah, it kind of sucked. People loved Henry V in that time period. Like,
wait, so what was he, like 25 when he died?
He was no, he was in his 30s.
Oh, okay.
I think, because I think when he became king, he was like 23 or 24 or something like that. So
yeah,
he was he was only king for 8 years. And then he died. People were very upset. He's like one of the most well-loved kings in the history of England. And England has had a lot of kings. They've had all the Henrys and the Georges
and the Louis
and then more Henrys and more Georges
and a couple other Georges, I'm pretty sure.
Dude, and I gotta say,
okay.
Timothy Carbohydrate, great Henry V. That's probably the best one I've come up with so far. If we ever meet this guy, he's gonna hate us.
Well, because I'm gonna just call him Timothy Crayola right to his face.
You're gonna say Timothy Crayola, and I'm gonna say Timothy Crayon. How are you, sir? Timothy Coriander.
Oh, that was a good one. Toyota Corolla.
That would be the best thing, calling him not by his actual name.
Just random T and C word combinations. Yikes.
Oh, man. Train crash. Nice to meet you, brother. I love your work. Anyway, what do you think grade-wise? What would you give this movie?
I think I'd give it just a solid B.
Solid B.
I kind of struggle to go any higher than that.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of given how I have graded past movies.
Right.
But
well, here's the thing you got to think about. We haven't really, up until this point, forced ourselves to watch bad movies.
Right. Maybe we should. So
people know that we actually do hate movies, some movies. Because for me,
that garbage ass.
Oh, I love Uncut Gems.
I know. That's
so we're gonna have to fight about that one.
Can we do an episode about Uncut Gems where we just debate each other?
That'd be great. That'd be a great show.
Be good.
Honestly, and this is probably just because I really like this genre. I'm a big fantasy fan.
Yeah.
And I kind of like this period when it's done well. And for me, this is one of the prime examples of how well it actually can be done. So for me, I mean, I would give this movie I'd give it an A-.
Okay.
I really, really like it, and there was just so little that I didn't like. It's hard to go much lower than that.
I think for me, my favorite part of this film was the way that it was shot and the cinematography and the camera work. And it's hard to put into words. It's almost hard to discuss because there's not really much you can say to describe it. You have to watch it to understand what sort of made it so breathtaking in that way.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why so little of this episode has been about the cinematography, but to me that was the single biggest bright spot.
Right. Probably the strongest point.
And so for me, along with that B grade comes a very strong recommendation for people to watch this movie.
Yes, definitely see this movie.
Even if you're not a fan of that period, even if you kind of stray away from, like I do, the drawn out dialogue and kind of those setting the scene type situations, you will love how this movie looks. It is.
Oh yeah.
It's enjoyable to watch from a pure technical standpoint.
I think one reason why the cinematography looks so good is because it almost looks like a noir film.
Yeah,
with how
to a degree, yeah.
Like there's such the way they use shadows and super bright lighting, also mixed with very harsh dark lighting. Like everything is very sharp. It's not sharp in that everything it has an edge to it. It's sharp in that the contrast between light and darkness throughout the movie is very noticeable.
Right. But to one point to that is the lighting, I think, is similar like you said, to a noir film, kind of that monochromatic, but it's not. It's never over or undersaturated like you tend to see with noir films. And that's what makes it so pleasing to look at, is it's just natural shadows and natural light.
It's natural noir, bro. That's what it is. You see what I just did there? All right, you want to take him out?
Timothy Crouton.
Oh, man. That's a good one.
Timothy Krusty Krab.
Timothy Krusty Krab. Krusty Krab pizza is the pizza for you and me.
Hey, that's not bad. I could have said Timothy Chumbucket. Well, now I did.
Or you could also say Timothy. Never mind.
All right, let's wrap it up.
Let's get it over with. Here we go. This is my favorite part of the show, is trying to say goodbye.
I hate goodbyes.
I'm no good at goodbyes. You think Timothy Crabapple is good at goodbyes? Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing, commenting, leaving that 5-star review, clicking the notification bell, all those things. Listen, if you're here, you know how to hit the subscribe button on YouTube. You know what you're doing.
Because the only people that listen to our shit is actual
are already subscribed. All 16 of them. Damn right. If you're listening to us on Spotify or SoundCloud or Apple Podcasting, thank you for coming to us on this platform. This is the platform where we release pretty much every single second of recording that we do in order to get ready for and after the video has been recorded. So there's always a little extra nugget or two in this spot. So thank you for coming here. Again, if you are on the audio platforms, we are available anywhere you can find podcasts. Be sure to subscribe, leave that 5-star review, send us some comments, leave us some comments on YouTube, anywhere on our Facebook. We have a Facebook page now. We're posting content there for all the latest videos and podcasts. So be sure to stay tuned. We got more stuff coming. We're going to be talking about The Haunting of Bly Manor over the next couple weeks. Pretty excited about that. And I want to kind of I think we're going to stay on the kind of maybe kind of the overlooked train, because I don't think many people know about this movie, and I think that's sad.
We had kind of talked about before doing like a hidden gems type of show, and this would have been one of them, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. That's all we got. We'll see you guys next time.
Timothy Cotton Ball.
Timothy Coconut.
Timothy Cotton-headed Ninny Muggins.